Well, it is the most wonderful time of the year. I absolutely love Christmas. It is one of my favorite times of the year. I think it's partly because everybody just seems a little bit happier, seems a little bit jollier. People wear brighter colors, the reds and the greens, and everything's just so smooth outside of Black Friday at Walmart. Everything is so great. At Christmas time, people just seem to be in a better mood, and so it truly is the most wonderful time of the year. But with that being said, we would all admit that sometimes, even though it is just this wonderful time of the year, Christmas doesn't exactly go the way that we would have planned it to go, or there are things that pop up that are a little unexpected that happen every single Christmas. We've all experienced things like this. There's one Christmas in my family, in the Turner family, that just kind of stands out in Turner family Christmas folklore. Okay, it is just a story that we tell. We can get together now and we can sit down, even though it happened 25, 26 years ago, we can sit down and we can say, hey, you remember that Christmas whenever Grandpa, and we can all go, oh my goodness, it was just absolutely insane. So I'd love to tell you this story. Because I was about 12, 13 years old, and, Christmas normally what happens is you go out, you buy your presents, you wrap them, you write somebody's name on them, and then you put them under the tree. Is that how everybody does it in your house? Do you wrap presents, write names on them, and put them under the tree? Now, question, just real quick, I want to see who is good and who's evil. How many of you all, is there anybody in the room that holds all their Christmas presents back until Christmas Day, and then you bring them all out, and you don't, we got evil people in here, all right. So, that's like torture. Just torture. What we did is, we always had our presents, and they would be out underneath the tree, and you would go up, and part of the best part of Christmas is going up to it, grabbing a present, and shaking it and trying to figure out what it is and trying to figure out if it's expensive, because if you shake it too hard, your mom's going to go, no, stop, and so you just kind of have an idea of what it is that you're getting. And so that's the way it was in my house whenever we grew up. And so it was even like that at my grandparents' house. And my family, we all lived in Southwest Missouri, and so we were all just really close, and we stayed together, a lot. And so Christmas was like a really busy, hectic time. And so, Christmas Eve, we go over to, it's just a tradition. We would go to the Christmas Eve services at First Baptist Church in Carthage, Missouri, and then we would come back to Grandma and Grandpa Turner's house Christmas Eve evening, and the house would be roughly 137 degrees because Grandpa had a wood fire burning stove, a fireplace, and a furnace all blazing the same thing. So you would wear your favorite Christmas sweater and those kind of great things, and Mom would dress you up, and those, some of you all remember this, they make you wear turtlenecks. You guys remember turtlenecks? You'd have those on and a sweater and all these things, and so you'd do that. Then you'd have a tank top and shorts underneath so you could take it off for Christmas Eve at Grandpa's house. And so we'd go there, we'd open the presents, and then Christmas morning we'd wake up at our house, and we'd have our thing there Christmas morning. Then Christmas lunchtime we'd run over to my great-grandmother's house until she passed away, and we'd have Christmas there. And then Christmas evening we would run over to Grandma and Grandpa Gibson's house, and we'd have Christmas there. And it was just non-stop, just a great time. But in every single one of those situations, what you do is you took the presents, you put them under the tree, and you got a chance to shake them. And everybody loved it. Except for my Grandpa Turner, I think, okay? Because once Christmas, I guess he was tired of us going underneath him and shake him on and trying to figure out what it is. And he just I'm going to mess with y'all. And so what he did that year is, we would go into the house and we look under the tree and the presents would still be there. But instead of names, there were numbers. And we were just like, what in the world is going on with this, Grandpa? And he's like, well, you're just going to have to wait and see Christmas Eve. And so we would ask him, is that for me? Is that for me? And he's like, nope, not going to tell you. Not going to tell you till Christmas Eve. And so, it built up all of this excitement, all of this just ooh, this is going to be, so much fun. And so, we get back there. It's 137 degrees. You're putting your tank top on and your shorts on. And it's time, for Christmas presents to be, passed out. So my brother, he's the youngest, and my cousin, they're both about the same age. They were the designated present getters. And so, they would dive under the tree, and they'd be the ones to be handing out all the presents. And so it comes time to do that. And they would say, all right, Grandpa, what do I need to do? And he's like, well, number 1, number 5, number 9, those are for Gloria, those are for your grandma. Number 2, number 7, number 3, those are for your dad. And he just kept going through this. And it was just oh, wow. It's like Rain Man, just kind of calling off numbers and things. And so, it gets to a place, and the way that we open presents at the Turner's house is, some of y'all might do it this way as well, is we were one at a time family. Any one at a time families, okay? You've either got the one at a time families who like order and things to be in a way, or you have chaos families, which is just open it all, and if you're done in 20 seconds, you're done, okay? Turner family is the one at the time, and we always started with the youngest person in the room, And then it went all the way through the oldest, and then it just kept on going and going and going. So opening presents took roughly 4 hours, okay? And it's just what it is. And so it didn't take very long into that evening to figure out that Grandpa had messed something up. Because whenever you've got like a 9-year-old boy opening up a nightgown that was meant for Grandma, it's just kind of go, oh, I don't know what you're trying to say here, Grandpa. This isn't exactly what it is. And so the entire night, we still don't know what happened. My grandpa went home to be with the Lord this past April. He never confessed what actually happened. So there are two prevailing theories that are going on. What happened is that Grandpa didn't bring his list from his room. He just went by memory and tried to do it that way, and he just got messed up and confused. And then the second theory is that he never told my grandma what his plan was, and so she's wrapping presents and just writing numbers on them and just doing that, and they all get passed off. And so we spent the entire Christmas Eve that night just opening up presents and going, wow, this is great. Is it really for me? Is this mine? And we kept passing them around, and it was an absolute train wreck. It was so funny, but at least I think it is now. It wasn't that night. It was just such a train wreck, and my grandpa's best laid plans just absolutely went out the window. And the next year we had names on the presents, okay? And we never tried the numbers again. I mean, we've all got stuff like that, right? Where we try to do something just like crazy at Christmas, or we've got our best laid plans, and we've got all of our ideas out there, and we've got our Clark Griswold hats on, and we're thinking as best as we can, as big as we can. This is exactly what we want it to be like. And then it actually gets into the moment, and it just does not work, and it just fails, and something unexpected happens, or our plans that we laid out just don't work. Like men, have you ever just thought that your wife was dropping hints about exactly what it was that she wanted, and so you went out and you did all of your shopping, and you went out and you got it, you wrapped it up, and you thought, oh, I did such a good job. She said she needed a new one of these. She said she needed a new one of these, and she's going to be so happy. And then she unwraps that mop, and you're just like, do you love it? Guys, here just a little bit. This is free, all right? Even if your wife gives you a list with a mop on it and it's got stars on it, circles on it, this is all I want for Christmas, do not buy your wife a mop. I have never made that mistake, okay? I really haven't. I've done other things, but I haven't made that mistake, okay? But, you've done that. Or, you've got, maybe it's somebody you love, and they're just like, oh, I got you the best thing. You're going to love it. You're going to love it. You're going to love it. And so in your mind, you're building all this stuff up. Is it a car? Is it this? Is it this? And then they give you this small little box, and you open it up, and you're just so excited, and you open it up and go, oh, I've always wanted a Donald Trump Chia Pet. Thank you. That's exactly what I was hoping that this would be. And we've all had those things to where our plans are just like, oh my goodness, I thought it was going to be this, but it ended up being that. And sometimes it's really silly stuff, but other times, sometimes it's just that stuff that cuts you to the heart. Like, you knew it was going to happen at some point, but that first Christmas after your dad died, or after your mom died, or after your granddad died, and that chair that was always there, and he was the one that was sitting there in that rocking chair, and whenever it came time for him to open up his presents, he'd pull out his pocket knife, and he'd open that up, and he would just so straightly cut everything, and he would do that, and you remember that, but now, this is the first Christmas you don't get to see that. Now, you knew, because this is how life works, you knew there was coming a day whenever that day was going to happen, but you weren't planning on it this year, were you? Or, maybe this is the year, you weren't planning on it. I mean, you'd kind of seen that things weren't going as well as you thought that they were, or, but you thought things were getting better, but then all of a sudden you end up with those papers and those divorce papers, and now here you are, first Christmas. You didn't plan on this, but here it is. Or maybe it's, your mom and dad, and you could kind of see that they were the ones that were having those problems, and you just thought, well, it's going to get better, it's going to get better, it's going to get better, but then, well, here it is. It's the first Christmas to where you've got to decide whether you're going to mom's house first or dad's house first. How are you going to go to mom's house? How are you going to go to dad's house? How are you going to make all these things work? And you never planned for this to happen, but here we are. It's right there. See, sometimes whenever it comes to Christmas, our best laid plans, they just get blown up. And things hit us that we didn't plan on hitting us, and here we are, we just have to deal with them. And really, it's not completely surprising that, Christmas would be a time whenever, things don't always go the way that we would expect them. Because really, from the very first Christmas, things haven't gone the way that you would expect things to go. I mean, you just stop and we think, I know we've got all of our pictures in our mind of what, that first Christmas looked like. You've got your, little nativity scenes that are sitting up there, or on your mantle, and you've got the angels, you've got the shepherds, you've got all the kinds of things. The angels are singing glory to God in the highest. And we've got this like Thomas Kincaid, Norman Rockwell kind of picture of, what that first Christmas was. But have you ever stopped to think that if you could sit down and have a coffee with Joseph and Mary and just say, hey, so did that first Christmas, did that go all the way that you thought it was going to go? They'd say, oh, no. It sure didn't. And Mary would probably look at you and go, you serious? Do you really think that I was hoping that whenever I was 9 months pregnant that the governor was going to call for this census and we had to do a long multi-day trip on camel? I'm 9 months pregnant. I didn't want to do that. And Joseph said, do you think I wanted to do that to her? I didn't want to listen to her whine the whole time. She's bouncing up and down the desert and do those kind of things. I kept my mouth shut, but man, it didn't go the way I wanted to go. And you say, Mary, and go, are you serious? You really think that, whenever I gave birth to the Son of God, the one, the Most High, the one that the angels are singing about, the one who's going to save the world, the chosen one of God, do you really think that in my dreams and in my mind that my plan was I hope to be able to lay him in a feeding trough after he was born? And Joseph would say, you think I felt like a great man and a great provider that whenever I showed up into the hometown and I went to the Motel 6, I went to, Best Western, I went to the Days Inn, I even went to the Hilton, I didn't even care how much it cost. And they said, nope. So you think that's how I planned it? No, it's not how I planned it. But then they would say, but God was doing something. And God worked it all out for his glory. See, from the very beginning, Christmas has been about this kind of unplanned, kind of unexpected things happening in a way that we would have never expected them to happen. But God jumping into the story and using them for his glory. Luke actually tells us about this. If you've got a Bible, I invite you to find it. This is probably a passage, even if it's like the first time you've been in church forever, or first time you ever stepped into church. If you've ever watched, the Charlie Brown Christmas special, you've heard parts of this story because this is where that is. Okay, and so Luke, we'll be in Luke chapter 1. If you got a Bible, if you don't, it'll be up here on the screen. You can follow along there. But Luke is, I love Luke, and the reason I love Luke so much is Luke's a lot like us. Is that unlike Matthew and Mark and John and Peter and James, Luke is one of those guys that never had a chance to lay eyes on Jesus. He never got to walk with him and to talk with him and to hear Jesus talk. He's like us, okay, in that manner. And so what he had to do is after he comes to faith and he starts to understand who Jesus is, he's got to go around and start talking to people and say, so tell me about this Jesus guy. Tell me about this Jesus guy. Tell me what he was like. And one of the people that Luke talks to is Mary, mother of Jesus. And so he gets to sit down with her, and this is after, Jesus has lived, he's died, he's been buried, he's risen again, he's up in heaven again. And so years after this, he's able to sit down with Mary and said, hey, I can just imagine him just kind of like a little, investigator, a little journalist just sitting there just going, hey, can you tell me that story? How did this all come to be? How did it all happen? Because this is a crazy story, Mary, and I think you understand how crazy this is. But can you just kind of share with me what it was like? She said, oh, it's a great story. In the 6th month, verse 26, chapter 1, of Elizabeth's pregnancy, that's Mary's aunt, God sent the angel Gabriel to Nazareth, a town in Galilee, to a virgin pledged to be married to a man named Joseph, a descendant of David, and the virgin's name was Mary. And the angel went to her and said, greetings, you who are highly favored, the Lord is with you. And Mary was greatly troubled at his words and wondered what kind of greeting this could be. So Mary has this angel just show up to her out of the blue. And it says that Mary was troubled, okay? And the reason she was troubled is because she had an angel standing in front of her. And the reason that that is troubling is because angels, I know a lot of times we think of Tom and Jerry and we think in terms of like wings and a white robe and just a little thing, or maybe you think in terms of precious moments and those little figurines with their great big demon eyes, and you think of those things and you think of those things and you think, oh, that's what an angel is. But whenever it comes to the Bible, anytime that the Bible describes an angel, there's always a phrase that an angel has to say, and we'll hear it here in just a second. The angel always has to say, don't be afraid. Now, why would an angel every time it show up say, don't be afraid? It's not that hard. Because they're scary, okay? This is why if anybody tells you an angel showed up to me, appeared to me, and you can just say, you can find out if it was true really quick. Were you terrified? And they go, oh no, it was so comforting. Didn't see an angel. Because angels show up, people are scared out of their mind, and Mary's no different. She's troubled. And so she's looking at it, and then Luke says that what she said is that she wondered what it was that she was seeing, what kind of greeting this might be. And I love this word wondered because it's really a financial word. Those of you who like numbers and those things, this is a word for you. It's really a word that means she audited the situation. She put it through an audit, okay? And she's just running through it. And so she's logically trying to process these things going, what in the world is going on? Did I eat some funny mushrooms? Did I have a bad dream? What's going on? Is this really what's taking place? I don't understand everything the same way. So she's just processing it, trying to get her arms around it, trying to get her brain around this situation, because here's this terrifying being that's in front of her saying, hey, good news. You found favor with God. So she's saying, okay, time out. There's an angel in front of me. And so the angel says to her, don't be afraid. Mary, you have found favor with God. You will conceive and give birth to a son, and you are to call him Jesus. He will be great and will be called the Son of the Most High. The Lord God will give him the throne of his father David, and he will reign over Jacob's descendants forever. His kingdom will never end. Mary, I got good news for you. And Mary says, we need a new definition of good news. See, Mary at this point is between the ages of 13 to 15 years old. How many between 13 and 15-year-olds do we have in the room here? Okay, so you can just kind of look over here. Got a bunch of them over here. We got 13 to 15 years old. So that means she's in 6th grade, 7th grade, or 8th grade. So let's just put her in 7th grade. So she's probably like every other teenager in the day. She's, on Instagram a lot, and she's taking selfies, doing the duck lip thing there, and liking posts on Facebook. She's Snapchatting and doing all kinds of things. And so this is just kind of her world. Okay, she's young. I mean, she's young. And she's also betrothed, which is like one step past engaged. All right, so like engagement, everybody knows you get a ring, and that means it's great. But the crazy thing about engagement is if one of you change your mind, it's okay, and you can just kind of walk away. You give the ring back, okay? That's what at least should happen, or you sell it on eBay. And so you do that, and then there are no legal consequences that are there. But in betrothal in the first century, what it was, it's one step past engagement. Legally, it's like they're married, but they just haven't consummated the relationship yet, okay? And so if Joseph or Mary, if they decide that they don't want to be together anymore, they've got to go through a divorce. They got to get a lawyer. They got to go to court and do all these kind of things, okay? And so that's Mary. That's kind of her background. And so for this angel to just show up and say, hey, you're going to get pregnant. You're going to have a baby. He's going to be the Son of Most High. This is great news. Mary's going, I don't know. I don't know about this. And because here's the thing. In her day, if she's caught pregnant and she's not married, I mean, at best, what she's going to do is she's going to deal with rumors and whispers and people talking about her behind her back. I mean, can you imagine living in a small little country town? Can anybody imagine this for just a second? And can you imagine like living in a small little country town and somebody in the middle school gets pregnant and all the little whispers, all the little talking, all the little things that are going on, and people just, at best, that's what Mary's going to be putting up with. At worst, and this is just the law that they had in the day, she could be executed. So it's not a good proposition here for her. And then the other thing is this. No, sometimes we miss this. And Gabriel says, hey, the son that you're going to have a baby, and the son you're going to have, he's going to be a king. And we think, oh, that's awesome, King Jesus, this is great. But here's the problem. There are already other kings in the land during that day. And you know what other kings don't like? Other kings. And so what Gabriel's essentially saying is like, hey, your baby's going to be born, and then he's going to go onto a most wanted poster as soon as it's done. So greetings. I bring you great news. So Mary was troubled. And all that being said, she's like, man, this sounds like a great idea, but there's just one itty-bitty little problem here. Look at verse 34. She just says, hey, how will this be? Mary asked. Since I'm a virgin. I'm not married. I've never been with a man. I'm not planning on doing that anytime soon. So you need to just explain this to me. How is this going to work? And then in verse 37, I love Gabriel's response. This is an older translation of it. He just says this, well, nothing is impossible with God. And Mary said, you betcha. Better be. And Gabriel's just like, hey, look, God's going to make this work. I think it's really easy sometimes for us as we just kind of, as we hear that nothing is impossible with God and we listen to what it is, it's just like, oh man, that's such a great thing. And it's great to watch Mary just kind of, take those words to heart and just kind of, like immediately, I just don't know if we can get our brains around just how quickly she goes from heart troubled, taking account, trying to figure out all these kind of things, to Gabriel just saying, look, nothing's impossible with God, to her just going, oh, okay. And in faith, she just is like, all right, this is the way it's got to be. In fact, the way that she responds would actually inspire the Beatles. I bet you didn't. Maybe you didn't know that. It inspires the Beatles to write the great Christmas song. It's not really a Christmas song, but it could be a Christmas song. You guys know the song, right? And whenever they would say, when I find myself in times of trouble, Mother Mary comes to me, speaking words of wisdom, and everybody says, oh, come on, that's sad. That's sorry. It's like, come on, now we can do this. Speaking words of wisdom. Let it be, bum, 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 right? And so that'll be in your head the rest of the day. And so, but that's what she says. She's like, okay, here's how it goes. God, whatever you're doing, whatever this doesn't make any sense, but sometimes whenever things don't make sense, but you're involved, it makes sense to go along with you. Let it be. Let it be. And I guess that, it's years later after she's, after all this has happened, and she's telling Luke the story, and she just thinks back over all the things that took place. I think that it's like the realization that Mary comes to is just, it's a great realization. The reason that she was able to say in faith, hey, let it be, let it be, let it be, is because she could see, even there at 13, 14, 15 years old, that God was going to use this story for his glory. And if God was going to use her story, this story that she was in, and if he was going to take it and if he was going to use it for his glory, then no matter what else and no matter all the inconveniences, all the things that she was going to go through, she's like, well, let it be. Let it be. God, I'm going to trust you. Even though it doesn't make sense, even though none of this makes any sense at all, God, I am going to trust you. Please use this story for your glory. As I stop and as we think about Christmas, all these emotions that, Mary was wrestling with are probably pretty familiar to a lot of us in the room. Mary, her heart was troubled, and can we just agree that sometimes Christmas can be troubling? It can be a hard time for some, can't it? Sometimes it's troubling just financially. Sometimes it feels like Christmas just sneaks up on us every single year, doesn't it? I mean, it happens the same day of every single year, and yet so many of us, it comes Thanksgiving time, it's like, oh no! We don't have any money. We don't know what we're going to do. And so it's like, well, MasterCard to the rescue, Discover to the rescue, Visa to the rescue. And so charge. And then, January 15th, they actually want you to pay that money back. It's the craziest thing in the world. And so like, I don't know, this is troubling to me. Others of you, it's a troubling time of year because, financially, it's like, we don't even care about presents right now. I don't even care about getting stuff under the tree. I'm more concerned about my lights and heat. It's cold. Just don't know how we're going to do it. It can be a troubling time of year relationally too, can't it? It's one of the most stressful, anxiety-inducing times of the year. And we just find ourselves just wrapped up around the axle about all kinds of different things, and our hearts are just overwhelmed with trouble. Christmas can be a troubling time for us. It can also be a confusing time for us. Mary was confused. How can this be? We're the same way. How can this be? Christmas can be confusing for us as well. I mean, you got your baby mama and the drama that is there, or you got your baby daddy and you got the things that are going on, and you know that, they need to spend Christmas with them, and you want them to spend Christmas with you, and you're supposed to have them on Christmas Eve, and they're supposed to have them on Christmas Day, but they live 2 hours away, and you've got this, and you're trying to figure out all of those, just, getting all those things worked out to where they need to be, and it's a confusing time, and not even to mention that you're just trying to figure out how you can be civil with this person. It's a confusing time. I can remember the very first Christmas after my mom and dad had split up and divorced. They were able to remarry a few years later, but I can remember that year. And I can remember sitting there going, all right, so how are we supposed to get over to mom's and to dad's? What are we supposed to do on Christmas Day? How are we supposed to split up all of our time? How are we supposed to do this? How am I supposed to, not only do this, but also go over to my in-laws and, make sure that's all going well and doing all these things. Some of y'all, it's confusing because it's the first Christmas you have in-laws. And you're afraid to laugh right now. And you're just like, I don't even know what to do, okay? It's just crazy. It's confusing times. Confusing. See, we understand this. These emotions are old. They're ancient. They've been dealt with for a couple of thousand years. And we've all just wrestled with these things over and over and over. And so maybe this Christmas isn't going the way that you thought it was going to go. And maybe all of your best laid plans have just been kind of blown up because life and the things are going on there. And you're sitting here in the midst of it all and you're going, God, I need some help. And so if that's where you find yourself today, I just want to leave you with just a thought. Is that your way through this is by getting to this same place of faith that Mary got to. So let me ask you a question real quick. Those of you who are believers, this is for you. Do you trust him? I mean, do you trust him? Do you trust him that in the midst of your story and all the things that are going on, and even though things aren't the way that you want them to be, or things aren't the way that they should be, and everything's just kind of a mess right now, I'm just asking, do you trust him? Do you believe that he has your best interest in mind and he has his glory in mind? Do you believe that he does have the power to work all things together for his good, for those who are loved and called according to his purpose? Do you believe these things? If you believe those things, then let's sing the song. Let it be. Trust him. Trust him to use your story. Because here's the thing. That just like with Mary and how he used her story for his glory, God can use your story for his glory. And what you're going through right now, that thing that you're dealing with, he is going to be able to use that for his glory. And eventually, it may not be tomorrow, it may not be this year, it may not be for a few more years. Eventually, after you see how God works through this and how he does something and he uses your story for his glory, you're going to be sitting down and you're going to be having coffee with a coworker, you're going to be sitting down at a family table and you're going to be sitting down, somebody's going to be talking and they're going to start to tell their story and you're going to go, I know this one. That's mine. And let me tell you how God worked in my story. And in that moment, his glory will shine. But the way to it is through faith. Don't give up now. In the middle of a story that's about to be ended. Don't give up now in the story that God is writing for your life in this moment. Because just because you can't see how it's going to end does not mean that he doesn't see how it's going to end. But in all things, you can trust that he will use it for his glory. And Heavenly Father, we pray today that you would help us to have that kind of faith. That we would be able to just say, you know what, God, we don't understand what's going on right now. Our hearts are overwhelmed. Our hearts are troubled. Our hearts are confused. But the one thing that we're going to try to focus on today is that we have a faith in you, the one who can take any story and use it for your glory if we will simply just say, let it be. Let it be. And so, Father, for those who are wrestling with that right now, I pray that you would encourage them, give them strength. For those who need to come to a place to where they see that you are the God who uses stories, woo them to you. Call them to you. But in all things, may we have faith. an unshakable confidence that you are good, that you are God, and that you will do what you have promised you will do. Give us faith. And we pray this in your name. Amen. You know, my brain, I like to think back to, just Mary, and I just wondered. I wonder how many times Mary told baby Jesus, little boy Jesus, teenage Jesus, this story. Can you imagine it? I mean, it probably didn't take that long. I mean, I bet you it's within the first couple of nights. She's got a little rocking chair. She's rocking that little baby. Oh, Jesus. If you only knew what God had done to make it to where you could show up here. Oh, I can't wait to tell you this story. She'd rock him. Then you get a little bit older, and she'd say, no, Jesus, come here. You need to sit down for just a second. I got a story to tell you. Have I told you the story about how God brought you into this world and how he has brought this all to be? And he said, yes, Mom, you've already told me. I said, well, I'm going to tell you again. I was 13 years old. And then she would just go into the story. And then, he gets a little bit older, and she just keeps telling him the story over and over and over again. And then she would start to throw things in like, now, Jesus, listen. There's going to come a day whenever God's going to ask you to do something that's really difficult, just like he asked me to do something that's really difficult. You're going to be confused. Your heart's going to be troubled. You're going to be overwhelmed. And in that moment, Jesus, let me teach you a song to sing. Let it be. Let it be. And about 33 years later, after Christmas, Jesus is in the garden. It's that last night on earth, and he knows that his end is near. His friend is on his way to betray him, and he's there in the garden. He's praying this prayer. He is so overwhelmed. He is so overwhelmed with grief that he begins to sweat these drops of blood. He even tells his disciples, my soul is overwhelmed to the point of death. He's confused in that moment because he's saying, God, if there's any other way, please let this cup pass from me. But then I wonder, did he remember the song of his mama in that moment? And whenever he said, but nonetheless, not my will, but your will be done. Let it be. Let it be. See, the reason that Christmas matters, it's not because of, like shepherds and angels and all those things. No, the reason that Christmas matters, the reason that we're still telling this story 2,000 years later, is because the one who did come at Christmas said, let it be. And he gave himself up freely. He gave up his perfect life and just freely gave it over so that you and I could know how much God loved us. And we would know what the forgiveness of sins, what that took, that we could have life with him forever. But it begins with let it be. It begins with submission of Jesus saying, all right, God, here we go. See, if you're here this morning and you've never understood that hope, or you've never put your faith and your trust, if you've never said those words to God himself of just saying, God, let it be. My faith is in you. Today's a great day to do that. Today's a great day to just be able to say, here it is, God, here I am. Because of what Jesus has done, I'm going to put my hope and my faith and my trust in you. God, I need you. If you've never done that, we want to give you a chance to do that. We're going to sing this great song of just a declaration of our need for him. And if you're ready today to say, God, I need you, we invite you to come as we stand.